Hi everyone, welcome to the Social Hotelier video podcast with me, Sam-Erik Ruttmann. Today I have a very interesting episode because I have 5 special guests who are sharing this episode with me. And the reason being is I was very busy for the last couple of weeks in May 2023. I attended first the International Hotel Investment Forum in Berlin, and the week after, I joined the Eco Resort Network in Montenegro. And they are so drastically different events from each other. Berlin event has been going on for many years. Similar people are showing up in the dark blue suits and white shirts. And you have all the world-class hospitality experts, brand leaders, hotel chains, thought leaders and investors into hospitality. And also they have many kind of educational sessions. And this year was a little bit different. They talked about the fortune favors the bold. And we have been hearing last year already a buzzword about sustainability. And also talk about this year. But what's very special about this year's event is there is a special ESG hub. And I want to bring in then a couple of my guests who I met in Berlin to discuss this. But before I do that, I just want to introduce to all of you to my guests today. So on my right, I have Dr. Willy Legrand. Hello, Willy. Welcome.
Thank you, Sam-Erik, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to connect again.
Yeah, Willy is a professor of IU International University in Germany and the thought leader and the guru and the author about sustainable hospitality development management. If you want to learn anything about sustainability and particularly hospitality, you have to read his latest book that he edited. It's only about 800 pages, right? So it's a good read.
That's right, yeah.
And next to Willy is Maribel Esparcia Perez, and she is a founding partner of the European Sustainable Hospitality Club. So Maribel, we know each other from the Hospitality of the Future think tank, and also we ran into each other in Berlin. So welcome, Maribel, and can you just briefly tell us about your activities?
Thank you so much for having me today. So I am an academic. I research a lot, but I am an independent advisor for the hospitality industry, and I teach in university. That's kind of my 2 main activities.
Very good. Thank you. And then we have Robin Woodhead. She is the co-founder of White Desert Antarctica. Welcome, Robin.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. And a little bit about what I do. So I'm the polar opposite of everyone else here. I run a polar logistics company with some tourism on the side and work on Antarctic governance as well. So nice to be here. Wonderful.
And then we have Tariro Madzingira. She is a banking professional and a community builder. So Tariro, warm welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So could you tell a little bit about your activities, because you attended the Eco Resort Network, and what was sort of behind, what was the reason you joined it, and what do you think you can build from that experience in Montenegro?
Yes, so this was my first ever kind of hospitality event. I went because I'm interested in the space. So I currently work in the city, a corporate environment, but I'm really interested in getting underrepresented groups outside into nature for mental health benefits. So I'm kind of more on the side where we have these corporate companies telling us they're so interested in diversity inclusion, and I'm interested in exploring how corporate companies can provide good experiences for staff within their offices.
Thank you, Tariro. And then we have Chris Nader. He's a co-founder of and CEO of Envy Lodges. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam-Erik, and thanks for bringing us together. It's lovely to see familiar faces again.
Yeah. And Chris, can you just briefly tell us about Envy Lodges, which you co-founded a couple of years ago?
Yeah, we're an eco-lodge management company and brand, developing projects between the Middle East, Africa, and Europe and the Americas. Quite dispersed. We're a new company, launched a year and a half ago. And contrary to Robin's climate, I live in an extremely hot climate where it's already started to hit 45 degrees, and just only not even in June yet, and that is the UAE.
Very good. Yeah, I remember that. I'm now in Helsinki, and now we have +5 or 6 degrees. So that's why my turtleneck. All right. So let's get started, and let me bring in then Willy and Maribel, and we'll talk about the International Hotel Investment Forum for a moment, and then we'll bring Robin Tariro and Chris also then when we start talk about Eco Resort Network. So Maribel and Willy, you attended, and understand that Willy, you were a speaker at the event at the ESG Hub. I saw there were a number of kind of topics which had to do with people, planet, and profit. But what did you see was sort of underlining theme and some sort of takeaways that you could share with us about that event this year?
So people, planet, profit, and progress, perhaps. Both Maribel and I were actually on the same panel, and we had prepared a presentation together. It was quite interesting because we know that those ESG matters are increasingly prominent. They have actually a prominent spot now on hotel investment and development stage, but there are quite a few pull and push factors, I would say. We see pressure to ensure validated information on environmental, social governance. That's on transparent credibility, accuracy. It's all a matter of compliance increasingly, but also, I guess, a matter of story. So you're quite right. At this year's IHIF, the lens is on the hotel's value chain, the supply chain. And, there was lots of discussions around the impacts from construction, material, FF&E, so furniture, fixtures, and equipment, the hotel seating, but also operations. So anyways, three. So you're asking for takeaways. So 3 takeaways I've got for you from IHIF, and most probably Maribel will have something similar or perhaps different. I'm not sure. So very simple. 1, the value of customer experience. 2 is asset decarbonization, and 3 is carbon tunnel vision. And I'll quickly, if I have a minute, I'll quickly explain what I mean by this. So I think what we've seen is that people are looking for experiences more and more. And the beauty here is, of course, our industry can capitalize on this, of course. And, that sustainability/regenerative story, that's an excellent marketing potential, really. But what we see is the claims that we're making must be substantiated. You have to walk the talk, but you have to be able to prove this, because consumers are increasingly educated on this, on the topic of sustainability, and they are suspicious of any flowery claims that we would make. And I guess this is also one of the push factors that we were discussing actually with Maribel, with the EU Green Claims Directive, which is in the works, and we'll have an implementation framework of time frame of 2024-2027. So that's the first thing, which leads me really to the second takeaway. The investors are looking increasingly at the ESG due diligence, but a lot of it is based on the decarbonizations of asset. That is, the investors into the hotel real estate are looking to the extent to which a building is on some kind of decarbonization pathway aligned with the Paris Agreement, right? Because they want to estimate the risks and uncertainty that they have with the real estate decarbonization. They want to be able to quantify the scenarios, identify which hotel property will be at risk of being stranded. That is, when the building has a devaluation, is a liability. No one wants to stay in this building because it's not efficient building. We know there's stricter regulation and legislations coming on carbon emission, etc. So the due diligence is something that they're looking at more and more, interested in the effect of what does that mean if I invest into this property. And that leads me to my last and third takeaway, I guess, from my HIF. And I guess maybe Maribel will say a few words about this, but this is from a very much an ESG approach, but most of the time that I spent at HIF this year, the industry, I think, suffers a little bit of a carbon tunnel vision. right? The global industry strive for that net zero emissions, which is, it's really commendable to do this. But what I see is that some of the solutions that may be brought across to reach net zero emission may come at a price to other sustainable development issues. Because in fact, we do have plenty of on our shoulders. We have inequity, we have inequality, we have water crisis in many parts of the globe. We have overconsumption of resources. We have 1 million rooms currently under construction worldwide, and each room needs 4, 5, 6, 700 kilograms of material that needs to come from sources, virgin sources often. So tremendous pressure on biodiversity, of course. So the carbon tunnel vision is sort of dangerous in a way, to the extent that we may actually ignore some of the other sustainable goals, sustainable development goals. So that's it. That's sort of my 3 key takeaway, really. So the value of providing an experience that has a sustainability claim to it, the fact that investors are looking at doing ESG due diligence in their investment towards hospitality real estate, and then the fact that we do suffer a little bit from a carbon tunnel vision.
Well, thank you, Willie. This is excellent observations that you had. And I also noticed that for the first time, an international hotel chain like Intercontinental signed an exclusivity agreement with the Zeal Hotel for the first net zero carbon hotel. And the aim is minimum BREEAM rating of excellent with target of outstanding. So that's kind of a newsworthy item. So I'm going to watch that space definitely and see how they advance on this era. But it seems to be that now that the big players are starting to take seriously, and in a player like Intercontinental is definitely
if that's right. In the case of Intercontinental, it's part of their Journey to Tomorrow strategy. In fact, by 2030, to have any new members to actually strive or being net zero. So I think it's part of the strategy that they had set in place to really push forward. So in that respect, it is commendable, isn't it? I mean, this is a positive step forward.
Sure. All right, Maribel, your thoughts on IHIF and the ESG hub discussion?
Well, I think Willie summed up everything very clearly, and I do agree with everything he said. Of course, we are very much aligned in the way we see things, and we perceive how the industry is moving forward. But from my side, I also noticed the lack of context-based problems and context-based sustainability perception and context-based development, because they are doing this, of course, the carbon, the net zero, the net positive, all this talking is like big talk. But then when you're thinking about the hotel, whether it's an existing property or a new development, there is what we miss, the details that are so important and crucial. We have to understand the local context. And for me, it's quite difficult at these big corporates to understand that, the importance of that. But we have to, because without that understanding of the local current biodiversity laws, the flora and fauna protection, the water scarcity, as you said very well, if we don't understand those problems and the social issues that are also, for me, the big topic that I haven't seen in the main stage. So besides carbon emissions, what are the real issues, the social and the human rights problems that we've got in our industry that are not being addressed? I would like to see more of this. But my 3 takeaways are very much like Willie's one. So the fact that they understood that sustainability, ESG, they affect asset valuation and returns is a huge risk if they don't monitor them properly. And the second one is, besides ESG being mainstream, carbon has been the main focus, and from the investor side, looking that credibility being associated to certification entities or recognition from like the principles for responsible investment entity or others. That's kind of the main thing driving ESG. And then the social side and the governance, the internal governance is being less, maybe it's less looked at, or we haven't seen that as prioritized as just the carbonizing assets. And the third one is the credibility and the data management. So they understand that they have a problem from the technology perspective. Most hotels lack of quality PMS or CRMs or data collection technology in operations. So without that data, you cannot monitor the right progress. So we need transparency, we need credibility for all these regulations. Willie was just discussing right now from the EC. They are putting so many new regulations and climate disclosure requirements that without clearly data and technology implementation, we cannot get or trust. So yeah, I think that's kind of the the insights I got from the event, but I believe it's positive that we are having this in the agenda at the moment, and that's being discussed, at least in this big event.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I think this is very, very good, and I think that also creates an opportunity, a little bit of a plan for IHIF to create the agenda based on even those points that you raised, that they should also bring them up. I mean, I didn't have a chance to visit the main stage this year, so I did not know exactly what was being discussed. I stopped in for a short time, and yes, there was about concerns about short-staffed hotels and how you need to create a better experience for the employees when they arrive to the hotel. How should the break time be? And that was kind of a level of discussion that I heard. But I think your points are very, very well taken, and I think this is something we should look forward to in other events besides the IHIF. Okay, so let's move over now. Change of mood, going to Montenegro. It was like meeting friends for the first time in a way, but it was such a warm and friendly atmosphere from coming from Berlin, which was hardcore corporate, running around trying to catch up with appointments. But here we had actually more time, and I was really pleased. I've been to meet Robin for the first time, and Tariro. Chris, we have talked some time ago, but now we had a chance actually to have some sitting down and have a good discussions and just to network. And I was so, I mean, this was the organizer talked about a generous and collaborative group of people involved in creation and operation of eco resorts. That was kind of their summary of the kind of people they were. And I totally agree, even though I'm not able to describe that so eloquently, but that's how I felt also. But Robin, have you visited, were you like the previous times in these events, or was this your first time also?
It was my first time in person, and the last time I was online. So it's always nicer to be in person, isn't it? Mm. And what a difference it is, I think, to the event you just alluded to in Germany. I think the contrast is humongous already. So I guess I'll dive straight into what my takeaways were. I was invited to be a speaker at the event to talk about adventure, extremes, and sustainability. And I hope I inspired some of the fellow, I think it was 60 of us that were there. But for me, the biggest three words, when you asked me to think of three takeaways, there were three words, and I'll explain, why I thought of those words. So the first was inspiration, and the second was intimacy, and the third was actually your word, Sam-Erik, was collaboration. So a little bit about why those are my key takeaways. The inspiration piece came from, the moment we sat in the room and I heard from the marvelous Bill Bensley, and every single person that spoke, be it on the podium or be it over a glass of wine on a boat cruise over those very intimate few days, are the front runners of what they do and the front runners of sustainability and ecotourism, from interior visualization to the scientific work you do, Willie, to doing your business the other way around, Envy, with creating a brand and then creating your lodges. So much inspiration, and I think that is the future of our sector of tourism, of ecotourism, is being those front runners and acknowledging that we actually are the groundbreakers. And that for me was the first exciting takeaway. And the second was the intimacy, the friendships, and the way we were able to actually be very honest with each other. And I know I speak for myself. I spoke about how complex our logistics were, to try and encourage others who operate in remote parts of the world not to be afraid to pair profitability with sustainability and taking massive risks to do so. Because as you said earlier, Willie, about biodiversity and climate, they go hand in glove with profitability. And being able to talk honestly about the examples, it was a very special gift, I guess. We did a lot of gift sharing over the course of the time we shared together. People gave me ideas of how to cool my overheated pods. I had 4 different ideas for that. So the generosity and I guess open-heartedness of the attendees, who are all power players in their own space. People were prepared to learn and share their stories and be transparent. And I think that's an extraordinary gift, a generosity of ideas. And I think that's where the real change happens in the corporate world as well, being inspired by that essence. And the third part was the collaboration you alluded to, Sam-Erik, is, hopefully I inspired others that we don't have to sit aside and wait for governments to make the sustainability choices and policy changes for us. We can be a part of that. And that's almost your give back to society, to both improve your own sustainability projects, but also uplift others. And I think we shared that as a community, that we could maybe work together on projects. And I know a lot of the Eco Resort Network people have paired up with other attendees. And I intend to do the same and possibly share advice. And, in my case, a lot of it is crisis management advice and, sustainable governance advice, I hope. But those were the most surprising takeaways, and also the similarities we all share of, I guess, the deep-rooted passion for trying to make the corporate world more sustainable and a lighter footprint. So I've rambled a lot, but I think those 3 takeaways, inspiration, intimacy, and collaboration, is what really struck me as remarkable.
Well, thank you. That's wonderful. You just took the words out of my mouth almost, or my thoughts, because I felt exactly the same coming to the first time for this event. And yeah, this was very, very special. And I really look forward to join another year again. But I think it's good opportunity now to talk to Tariro, because now you are interested to learn what gifts you received from coming to the event. As I understand that you have an ambition one of these days to start your own community in Zimbabwe, or doing something of those sorts. So please share with us how the event was for you.
Sure. So I feel like mine are very similar to Robin. But I'll say this was kind of like my first foray to an event like this, and I was kind of nervous because I thought, perhaps it's too early to go. I haven't really got anything to share. So I think I was I'm very happy I went, and I was so surprised at how giving everybody was with their time and their advice and kind of their stories. And I remember Todd had during his speech, he said something about the campfire at a site and how the glow of the campfire highlights our similarities and the burn our differences. And I was like, there is so many similarities that we can have in this group of 60 people from completely different life paths, but a similar goal. And my 3 kind of takeaways were inspiration, partnership, and excellence, which I think are going to essentially be kind of like what Robin said, but I'll explain what I thought. So inspiration, I believe in kind of see it, be it. Where I don't know anybody personally who's ventured into operating a site, I thought it was just amazing to see so many people owning the site, so many people involved in the development of the site. And I thought it really made me realize that it doesn't have to be you as an individual who takes on absolutely everything, but it's kind of a partnership in people are good at different things and finding out what it is that you want to create and who else is in the industry that is already doing it or that you can gain inspiration from or perhaps work with. it doesn't have to be this one big daunting task. And also, I found it really interesting and kind of great to see how people already were working together on specific projects, and how during their storytelling, you could tell that it wasn't just something for business. It's in their own lives that they've sought inspiration in their day to day, and they just happen to harness this into a business that they're now working on. And the last one, excellence, I found that a common thread through all of the speakers and all of the people who are there is the pursuit of excellence in their own learning and what they're delivering, and also what their business will do. And by that, I feel, in comparison to other events that I've been to where the focus is on getting lots of money, I think it's really that impact that you're going to have, not just for your family, but for the local communities and everybody in the planet, in terms of what is the lasting impact of everything you're going to do. So overall, I just thought it was expansive in my thinking, and yeah, really, really inspiring.
Good. Well, thank you, Tariro. And Chris, what are your thoughts on and takeaway from our event in Montenegro?
I have many thoughts, and I think they're gonna mix up in my brain and come out in a very random order. But I've was fortunate and unfortunate to attend many hospitality conferences in the last decade and a half. And most of them are very large conferences, like the one you were speaking of earlier. I love the blue suit, dark blue suit with white shirt, because this is a trend, and they all wanna dress accordingly and in a similar fashion. I think different conferences have different objectives. Most large conferences want to attract the big players that want to showcase the biggest stands and speak the longest on stage and be on the biggest stage and try to impress the most and try to have as many press releases as possible to make a biggest impact, because there is a big PR component to it, which is very important. And we participate in these conferences, and when need be, we do make announcements at these conferences. But I believe that the purpose of these conferences is more about networking, as you said, getting people together and trying to impress the other, trying to make a certain point, etc. And which is fine, and I think we need those conferences definitely, and I enjoy going to them, but for a completely different purpose. The topics as well, I find that in those big conferences remain very high level. No one on stage wants to go into detail. No one wants to challenge the other one, because there is a lot of face also saving that you want to do when there is a large audience of 2,000 people listening to you. The setting does not encourage you to actually challenge each other, and it goes down a certain routes, which often and sometimes stays at a very high level, which may not be very interesting. Now, moving to the Eco Resort Conference, wow. It was like day and night. First, I think the size of the conference plays a huge role in the success that it has. 60 people versus 1,000 or even 2,000. A huge difference. When you have 60, you're able to choose the speakers, you're able to choose the delegates and the sponsors more carefully. And when you have only 60 people, it does become like a small community, like a family, who is actually sitting there to help each other, to learn from each other, to support each other, and not to show off or to brag, etc. I mean, honestly, Robin is here. It's difficult to speak in front of a person because it's not because you're here, but someone like Robin being at this conference with what she's done is huge. Having Bill Bensley, Luca Franco, Louis Top, these guys are big. And having them so modestly and so genuinely and generously sitting there speaking to the audience and telling intimate stories in an intimate setting, it's just amazing. And you don't get to do this in other conferences. So I think this is a huge plus, and we are all very, very privileged and blessed to have attended those talks and had the chance to meet them, whether it's on a boat or over a glass of wine. We had many of those. It was lots of fun. And I think the third one, I felt that was my first Eco Resort conference in person. My co-founder Noel attended the first one in Slovenia, but the feedback was a bit similar, is that the choice of location also puts people in a certain mood where they just want to be together and support each other. I mean, when you're sitting around that waterfront in Montenegro, or same thing last year in Slovenia, first of all, we were very, very lucky to experience that country and its culture and its people. And when you put 60 people passionate about nature and adventure and outdoor hospitality in such a setting, I mean, you can only create friendships and spend some amazing time. So I think these are the three main components that made this event so special.
I felt whenever you gave that sort of three key points from the event, I sort of relived the event from last week in a very special way. And then I had a chance to meet you, all of you individually, that made it very, very, very special. And I really look forward that we have a chance to meet again and also exchange ideas around this, and maybe in a different format and so on. But I'd like to just take this opportunity to just thank you for joining from your busy schedules this video podcast. And I look forward to seeing you perhaps in another episode, and we have a chance to talk about one topic for a longer period of time. So thank you again for being with us.
It was great fun, and I'd like to do it again, right?
Yeah.
That was the takeaway.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share another final thoughts?
I'll try to
Yeah, same here. Go ahead, Maribel.
No, I was just saying that I will try to attend next year, because it looks like this is an amazing event. I've never been. I mean, I participated online, but not on site. So I'd love to travel if I can and meet you.
Yeah, for me, listening to Chris and Tariro and Robin again, it's like being there again last week. And I think what was amazing in comparison to so many other corporate conferences is just a holistic approach over everything that you guys do when you actually do your projects. It's great. It's actually great, and that's the way to approach sustainability or regeneration. In fact, very, very inspiring. I just hope that whatever you're doing is going to have an effect. It's going to spill over to the corporate world. In fact, so not the other way around, but rather what you do actually has a spillover to the rest of the world. That's really what's needed.